I've seen when black people claim that the ancient Hebrews and Jews were black people and Jesus was not a white man. Many white people come across and say, okay, Jesus was not a white man, but he wasn't a black person either, because he was from the Middle East, and therefore, according to them, he must have looked like Arabs. But this is a fallacy. Just because the modern population of a region looks like X doesn't mean that the ancient inhabitants of that region looked also like X. For example, look at Australia. Are white Australians descended from the ancient Aborigines? Or are white Mexicans descended from the ancient Mayans? Of course not. The Middle East is the most melting pot region of the world. There are black, white, brown, Indian-looking and Mongoloid-looking people in this region, all of whom claim to be native and indigenous to this region. And for example, in Arabs, there are black, white, and mixed, the so-called brown Arabs, all of whom claim to be the real Arabs. But which of them is the real Arab? The black one, the white one, or the brown one? The same goes for Iran. There are many different ethnic groups in Iran. There are Mongoloid-looking Turkmens, there are Indian-looking Baluch, there are native blacks, there are white-looking Turks, there are mixed-looking Kurds and Lurs. Which of them is the true Iranian? And unlike what the believers of the Indo-European hoax claim, the white-looking people in this region are not descended from the ancient mythical Indo-Europeans. These people are mostly Turks or descended from Turks. For example, here in Iran, up to 40% of people are Turks, and I don't know how many of them are descended from Turks, meaning are related to Turks. And the most white-looking people of Iran are mostly Turks, but there are also Russian, Georgian, and Armenian people too living in this region. And that we all know that Turks are not an indigenous people to this region. They came from southern Russia and the Central Asia in recent centuries, and they cannot be an indigenous people to this region. The ancient inhabitants of the ancient peoples of the Middle East were all different types of black people, different groups of black people. Assyrians were a black people, Persians were a black people, Elamites were a black people, and Arabs, yes, were a black people. That's why you see Assyrians have depicted themselves with curly hair, curly beard, and dreadlocks. That's why you see Persians have depicted themselves with curly hair and curly beard. And even there are many wall paintings found in Susa in which Persians have depicted themselves with black skin, have painted themselves with black skin. So therefore Persians were black people, not a so-called Indo-European. And I believe that Persians, Assyrians, Arabs, and all of the ancient inhabitants of the Middle East were an Ethiopian type of people, the so-called Semites, an Ethiopian type of people. People like the Somalis, like Ethiopians, like Eritreans, like Djiboutis, like dark-skinned Yemenis. You know, they weren't a white people. Why? Because the temperature here in this city goes up to 50 degrees Celsius in summers with a high intensity and a UV index of 12. white people cannot endure this heat. They cannot tolerate this heat, so they cannot be indigenous to this region, because we semi-white looking people cannot stand this heat. We cannot go outside too much in summers. But how can white people be indigenous to this region? And I don't say this because I'm racist. As you can see, I'm not a black person, and I look mostly like whites than blacks. I just want to tell the truth that the ancient inhabitants of these regions, from Babylonians, Assyrians, Elamite, Persians, Jews, were all black.
And that brings us to the end of the video, a fascinating look into the ancient history of the Jews and the broader peoples of the Middle East. So as we've explored according to the perspective shared by the Iranian man in the clip, and I think he told no lies. There's much to be reconsidered when it comes to the original appearance and identity of these ancient populations. It's a narrative that often gets overlooked or even suppressed in modern discussions, but history has a way of speaking its truth to those willing to listen. When we remove back the layers of modern politics, media, influence, and cultural rewriting, we find that the earliest Hebrews, those of ancient Israel, as well as other people of that region, were indeed described as dark-skinned, as black people. This is not just a myth, not just a speculation. It aligns with the writings of ancient historians, biblical descriptions, archaeological finds, and oral traditions that carried throughout generations. The Iranian man's words reminds us that this truth isn't new. It's simply been ignored or buried by time and by those who've had the power to shape mainstream media, the narratives. The Middle East, North Africa, and so-called cradle of civilization was home to a variety of black and dark-skinned peoples long before invasions, migrations, and cultural shifts reshaped the region's demographics. From the Sumerians and Akkadians to the Canaanites, Israelites, Moabites, and even Egyptians and Nubians, there's a common thread that connects them all to a black African root. This information challenges. It makes us rethink not only about what we know about biblical figures like Moses, David, Solomon, even Christ himself, but also how their images have even reshaped in art, media, and religious traditions over centuries to suit Eurocentric ideals. And that's why these conversations matter. Truth is not meant to remain hidden. Truth liberates, truth empowers, and truth restores identities that have been stolen or erased. And of course, this topic is vast, and there is so much more to explore, whether in history, genetics, linguistics, or anthropology. But what we can be sure of, based on what the Iranian man rightly pointed out, is that the world has not been told the full story, not in textbooks, not even in Hollywood movies, but in popular religious teachings, and certainly not in mainstream academic circles without resistance. So as we close this video, I want to encourage you, my viewers, pardon my voice, I have a very bad, I think I'm developing a very bad cough, so my throat is so much irritated. So like I was saying before we close this video, I want to encourage you not to take my words or this man's word blindly. Go do your own research for yourself into the sources, question the established narratives, dig deeper, because once you start asking the right questions, you'll discover that history is far more complex and far more beautifully black than most of us were ever taught. Okay, let me know your thoughts on this video in the comment section down below. I want to hear what you think. Was this eye-opening for you? Do you have more sources or insights to share? Please drop them in the comment section down below. And as usual, thank you so much for watching. I'll definitely see you in my next video. And before I close this, okay, this information that I've shared is based on the information that I found online. Okay, it's not based on facts. I found this online. Okay, yeah, with that being said, I'll see you in my next video.